Our very first speaker is Brandon Eastman, great friend of mine and the owner of Be Better Industries. He is a self-mastery specialist and ultimately started from a low place himself, transformed his own life, and now guides others in self-mastery, sales, personal growth. And I'm just going to pass the torch over to Brandon. It's excited to be here. Oh man, excited to be here. Excited to have you here, Brandon. First call of the
Wow.
day.
Great to be here, brother. I just want to thank you, Ben, for the invitation to speak alongside the great and powerful Matthew Dix. I think everyone in this room knows Matthew Dix. I've got his book right here. I'm a big fan. And I just want to give a round of applause. Thank you, Ben, for having me. Round of applause for Ben for being an incredible host, for creating the Go-Getters, for having us all here in the first place. Round of applause. And round of applause for Mr. Andrew Biernat for being probably the best MC I've ever had the pleasure of being in a Zoom room with. Round of applause for Mr. Andrew Biernat. Let's get the energy. Let's get the energy. If you want, do an emoji, whatever makes you comfortable. Guys, it's a pleasure to be here. You might have heard self-mastery expert, and you're like, what the heck is that? Right? Well, the outcome of this short time together is if I can leave you with one thing, that one thing would be, I want to leave you with a 5-step process where if you follow this process step by step in the order that it is described, if you just follow instructions, then you can go from where you are to where it is you want to be in less than 6 months. You're probably like, am I going to learn something new? You're probably like, is this something I've never heard of before? Plot twist. Nothing I share is going to be something you haven't heard of before. Okay. And you're probably like, this is great. What am I going to learn? Well, we're going to talk about things you already know, but sometimes it's helpful to have a reminder of these things, right? Because I come from a place where I didn't have a successful business. I come from a place where I struggled in sales. I come from a place where I struggled with my relationships and my mindset. And I want to share that 5-step process with you because raise your hand, by the way, if you've read the book Storyworthy. Raise your hand if you've read Storyworthy by Matthew Dix, who's going to be speaking after me. Okay, excellent. I don't want to take too much away because he might be talking about it in his presentation, but one of the most impactful chapters of Storyworthy is where Matthew talks about how to identify stories in your life. Does anyone remember that chapter? Raise your hand if you do. He talks about at the end of each day to go back through your day and ask yourself, what's the highlight of this day? Because often we think that we don't have anything that's story worthy, but really something happens each and every day, sometimes multiple times a day, that is in fact story worthy in our life. And I read that and I was like, this is very interesting. And I also like to think of stories in this way. I believe that each of us has what you might have heard as a hero's journey story. Each and every one of you is a hero in your own story. Each and every one of you is the main character in your story. And there are stories that we live in our lives, and there's origin stories, there's hero journey stories. But the most powerful part about being the main character is you get to create the story that you're living in. And there was a time in my life where I was living in a very different story just 8 years ago. I was living in a story of lack. I was living in a story of sadness. I was living in a story of depression. I was living in a very real story of debt and being 60 pounds heavier than I am now, being unhappy when I look at myself in the mirror, pretty much the complete opposite of who I am today. You would certainly not be speaking to Brandon Eastman 8 years ago. He wouldn't even know what to say if he was put in front of a lot of people. So I love that story because you get to craft your own story. And I'd like to ask you a question, and I challenge you and invite you to put it in the chat box, the answer to this very, very important question. And I'd like you to think about it before you post your answer. Maybe you already know, maybe it'll take you a minute. My question is, what is an extraordinary life to you? What does it look like to live an extraordinary life? You joined the GrowGetters. Maybe this is your first GrowGetter event. Actually, let's see. Raise your hand if this is your first GrowGetter event. Raise your hand if this is your first one. Excellent. Raise your hand if you've been to like 5 or more of these incredible networking events. Amazing. Super cool. You're here for a reason, right? Your reason might be, I want to connect with other great people. I want to connect with other people on the path. Your reason might be, I want to take away one strategy that can help me in my personal life. I want to take away one strategy that can help me in my business. But overall, you're here because you believe that something here in some shape, way, or form, a person, a thing, an idea, will help you to take steps towards that extraordinary life. What is that extraordinary life to you? Put it in the chat box because I want to read them. Rudy Gargioni, very Italian, wrote being of service to others and giving back to the world on a grand scale. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Rudy. Amy wrote preventing people from falling through the cracks. I'm guessing, Amy, if I had to guess, I could be wrong. You can tell me that you at some point in your life were falling through the cracks. You found your way out and now you're like, I want to help other people do the same thing. Raise your hand if that's true, Amy. Raise your hand. Yes, I see it. Both hands. I love it. Freaking awesome. Michael said a life with money, wealth, and worth and more. Omnipresence results excellence. So it could be wealth, it could be family, it could be business, right? Everyone's definition of an extraordinary life is their own. And it's so powerful because this is your story. You get to decide what it looked like. Now, this is the thing. When I was 21 years old, I was doing very well in sales. I was earning over six figures a year, but I was broke. I was in debt. I was over $30,000 in debt, practically close to 30,000. I was making a lot of money, but I was not spending that money. I was spending it. I wasn't saving it. I didn't know what to do with it, right? I believed when I was young that the only definition of success was to make a lot of money. Raise your hand if you grew up in an environment where you believe that if you had the money, that you would have everything. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if that was you. That was certainly me. Yeah, I see a couple hands right now. And the thing is, you need money, right? Especially business owners in the room. You need money. Without sales, without money, the business doesn't exist. You can't help people on a grand scale like practically everyone wrote in that chat box without money. You need it. But it's certainly not the only thing. And Ben, you were so kind to give me the ability to share my screen. I'd like to share a few things with you here. This was me when I was 18. Okay, I started in sales right out of high school. And I was going to school to be a lawyer at the time. And I was like, money is the objective. I want to make 60 grand a year. That's my goal. And I started going to school and I started working in sales. And I realized very quickly that in sales, you can make a lot of money. Okay. I had no idea. This is me buying my first car. I was 19 years old, brand new Kia Optima. This is me the next year. I was like, this Kia is not enough. I need a brand new BMW. I got to spend this money somehow. Right. So I'm making the money, spending the money, making the money, spending the money. If you go back, you can actually see the progression here. Me at 18, me at 19, me at 20. There's a few things you can notice. One, the lack of hair in each picture, right? We just talked about that. I'm certainly not going to be the group leader in our breakout room. That's for sure. The second thing you can notice is a slow gain of weight throughout the years. I'm not saying that weight gain is bad. I'm saying it was bad in my case, right? It wasn't a good weight gain. It was a weight gain where I looked in the mirror and I said to myself, this is not who I want to be. I'm not happy with myself. This is not where I want to be. I thought that if I was making more money, I would be happy. I thought if I had the nicer, newer car, I'd be happy. I thought if business was going great, I'd be happy. But I was only focusing on one of the key areas of my life. To me, my definition of an extraordinary life was greatly flawed. And it took a mentor coming into my life. And Ben loves when I talk about mentors. Andrew loves when I talk about it. But I had a very significant mentor come into my life. And he said to me, Brandon, you've got to change things. You're overweight. You're unhappy. You got a terrible mindset. You're depressed. You're sad. He's like, only you can change your story. And I said, what do I got to do? And he said, Brandon, you need to read this book. Raise your hand if you've read The Secret. Raise your hand if you've read this book. Excellent. If you haven't read it, read it. It's kind of cheesy. It definitely was cheesy when I first read it. But as cheesy as it is, it's meant to be an introduction to something that you might have heard of. It's called the law of attraction. Like attracts like. And whether you think it's hokey, whether you think it's bullcrap, the law of attraction has been very, very, very real in my life. And pretty much what it says is you get what you think about most of the time. For me, it was money. I wanted money. I wanted money. I wanted money. Although I didn't say, I want to save money. I want to invest money. I want to build something great. I was making it and the money was leaving because I wasn't specific with what it was I wanted. And that was the only thing I got. Right. So I read The Secret. And I was like, I got no choice but to change something. Okay. And within 6 months, this is me in 2016 here at the bottom. Within 6 months in 2017, I had lost over 60 pounds. I had come to the understanding that my hair was not going to grow back. So I shaved my head. I changed my entire identity. One tip here, one strategy is if you're not happy with where you are, if you're in a place where you look at yourself and you're not happy, make a dramatic shift in the way you look, some shape, way, or form. Change your hair color, right? Go to the gym, work out, right? Maybe change your style. Maybe get a different watch that makes you feel good. Change something about your personal style. Change something about the way you look. It's one really quick way to change your identity, and it helped me a ton. This was me on the left here. This was me the next year at my company party. Both years, just 1 year apart. You can change your life in the course of 6 months or less. And I know all of us here have a success mindset. We understand that real change can take time, but is 6 months really a lot of time? It's not a ton of time. Okay, this is another picture of me on the left, 2016, And this was me a couple of years ago. I believe this is me in 2021. And as you can see, I've kept the results going, right? Now, you're probably wondering, what did you do? These are the 5 steps that I want to give you, where if you follow these steps in order, you can go from where you are now to where it is you want to go in your life, in your relationships, in your business, in your spirituality, in your finances, every single area. Raise your hand if it's okay if I throw these 5 quick steps at you. Raise your hand, flail them around, give me some jazz hands. Don't be shy. Give me some jazz hands. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Christine, for the emoji. You're speaking Andrew's love language. I love it. I didn't know that's the 6th love language. We got to get a revision to that book. So the first step in the 5 P's of self-mastery is you got to create a plan. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? The question that I'm going to ask you in the breakout room, just to give you some time to think about it, is fast forward 5 years from now. And I want you to imagine that your business is in the best possible place it could be. You have the ideal outcome for your business. I want you to fast forward 5 years from now and assume that you have the best possible outcome for your personal situation as well as your business, right? Financially, spiritually, in your relationships. I would like you, and if you're up for it, I invite you to close your eyes right now, or if you want to do it with your eyes open, that's fine too, no judgment. And I want you to imagine your future life as if you are living it right now, 5 years in the future. I'm going to ask you in the breakout rooms, what does that life look like? And then I'm going to ask you, where are you now? Because if you know where you are now, and if you know where you want to go, your plan, the first step in this sequence, then it's very easy to look at what is missing in the middle here. Yeah, some of you are still envisioning this future. I love it. I love it. Keep looking at it. Keep seeing it. Yeah, Andrew's happy with it. He's nodding his head. Yeah, I see the eyes open. He knows exactly where he's going. I love it. I'm going to ask you where you're going. And guess what? If you don't know where that is, no judgment. I would have had no idea. But I have a big idea that your plan has something to do with making an impact on other people. So we'll help you find that plan if you're not quite sure. The next step is you got to have the power to fuel the plan. What good is a plan if you're waking up every single day and you don't have the energy to fuel the plan? Listen, I just had my first baby boy. All right, my first child, who just happens to be a baby boy. He's 3 months old. And I understand now what parents were talking about when they say you do not get sleep. Raise your hand if you're a parent in this room. Raise your hand if you agree and understand the lack of sleep as a parent at times. It's getting better. I can say that. And Julie Cooley, who's in the room, good to see you, Julie. She'd messaged me and she's like, Brandon, how's sleep going? And I understand the importance of power, because for a couple months, I wasn't getting the fuel that I needed. Sleep is so important, but you must have the power to fuel the plan. And sleep is one facet. Sleep, food, how you hydrate your body, right? Are you giving your body, and even more important, your mind, the fuel necessary in order to power the plan? Because once you know where you want to go, we can determine what kind of fuel am I going to need to get there. You're already doing something huge by being a part of the GrowGetters. So round of applause to you. Excellent. You're here. You're around. Proximity. Proximity is power. I love it. You got to have the power to fuel the plan. That's number 2. The third P is purpose. Raise your hand if a part of your 5-year goal is to make a massive difference in the lives of other people in some shape, way, or form. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Excellent. Yes, that's why you are here. Whoa, some of you are quick on those emojis. I love it. Purpose. I had no idea what my purpose was. Check this out. Even after I made those significant life changes, I had no idea what my purpose was. I stumbled across my purpose. And I think it was Amy earlier who said that she helps other people from falling through the cracks because she at one time fell through the cracks. It's hard to help others through something that you haven't gone through yourself. And I wasn't able to help other people until I went through the difficulties. This is the power and the magic of your story. What's the difference between helping a client with your business and you haven't experienced what they're going through versus having gone through the exact thing they're dealing with or something close to it and being able to help them navigate that with a sense of comfort because you've been there yourself, right? Having that purpose is a key ingredient in the steps to self-mastery. The fourth P is getting yourself around the right people. Proximity is power. You know this. You're here. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the great and late Jim Rohn. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Jim Rohn. He was a giant influence for me. Being around the right people, networking with the right people. We don't need to spend more time on this because you are already doing that. But one thing I will ask you, because people includes family. People includes friends, not just business and networking. Think about the 3 people that you spend the most time around in your personal life. Think about the habits that they are instilling and influencing you based on what they are doing. Are you spending the time personally around the people who are conducive to you being of service and alignment with your mission? Are you around the right people there? That's important too. And the 5th P is quite possibly the most important. Progress. 1% progress every single day. I'm the type of person, and I would reckon that I'm joined by many friends here when I say that I am hard on myself at times. I'll rewatch this replay and I'll think, oh man, I wish that I talked about this. I wish that I went over that, but I just didn't think of it in the moment. I'll look back and say, I wish that I was moving quicker. I'll look at other people in the industry or other people who are doing what I'm doing, and I'll say, I wish that I was where that person was. How is that person moving much more quickly? That person's got more resources. That person has more opportunities. That person's 10 years younger and they're already at a better place than I am. Raise your hand if that's ever you. It's okay to be honest. That's me at times. Yes. And this is what I'll say to that based on experience, based on what I've learned from over 300 guests on my podcast that I've had the honor to talk to, Ben Albert and Andrew Biernat being a few of those guests, and Julie Cooley, who joins us. And hopefully one day Matthew Dix will be on the show as well. Hint, hint, Matthew, we got to get you on the show. Progress is so important because you're going to fail along the way. You're going to have these thoughts and you're going to have these stories that you tell yourself. But if you keep going and make 1% movement every single day, if you can look back, and like Matthew talks about in his book Storyworthy, if you can look back every day and say, this one thing I did today moved me 1 inch closer to where it is I want to be, then it's only inevitable that you'll get to where you want to be, or you'll get to somewhere even better than where you wanted to be. When I look back, my goals 5 years ago were so different than where I am right now. And I'm so grateful and blessed that my life now is different than what I hoped for. It's important to have a plan, but it's also important to have grace for yourself when that plan might not be going exactly as you expected. Look back each day and ask, what's the one thing I did today to move me closer to where I want to be? Because raise your hand if you've heard the quote, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we greatly underestimate what we can accomplish in 5. Raise your hand if that's you. Yes. 5 years is going to pass. 10 years is going to pass. The question will be, will you be closer to where you want to be in that time? And the answer is yes, if you follow this process. One more time for you writers who want to write it down or take a picture, you got to have a plan. You've got to fuel the plan, align with your purpose, surround yourself with the right people, and make 1% progress each day. We're going to help you with that first step right now in the breakout rooms. I'm going to ask you the question again. If I'm not in the same room as you, then we'll still facilitate this question. 5 years from now, what does your life look like? What does your business look like? Where are you now? And what can we do today in order to fill in the gap between where you are now and where it is you want to be? Thank you again, Ben, for having me, Ben and Andrew. And thank you everyone for hearing me out. And I invite you to employ one of those steps right now, today, before the end of the day, so you can make 1% progress towards where you want to be and achieve self-mastery. Thank you, guys.